Beckett, an American tourist, wakes to his girlfriend, April, caressing him and apologizing for the argument they had the previous night. He loves her deeply and wants things to work between them. To seal this, April draws a heart on his palm, reminding him they are always together, even when they fight. Beckett couldn't agree more, leading to the very next thing couples do after an argument. Later, they head out on tour, where April begins her usual game of guessing random people's lives. She makes Beckett join in, and he jokingly asks her,
"Have you ever noticed that all of yours end up kinda sleazy?"
Well, the girl really has a wild imagination. Afterwards, they arrive at a restaurant to eat. Beckett is relieved they left Athens, Greece, because of the political unrest and the massive protest going on. Still, he isn't entirely happy. He's a meticulous planner who hates being derailed, but he is glad to be with April. They share a passionate kiss, nearly losing control, but the setting pulls them back to reality. Later that night, as they drive to their hotel, she asks,
"Call about tonight? We're all set."
Beckett suddenly remembers he never confirmed the reservation. She manages to get his phone from his pocket to handle it. Beckett thanks her, consoling himself that he isn't so bad. Well, not with April, but with others, he struggles. Snuggling close, she gives him a mental trick, saying,
"Just pretend it's me, and you won't hold back."
Moments later, April is fast asleep on the passenger seat, while Beckett struggles to stay awake at the wheel. But fatigue overtakes him, and the car veers off the road, somersaults down a hill, and crashes into a house. Hanging upside down, Beckett notices a young boy, but a blonde woman rushes in and drags the boy away. Beckett shouts,
"Hey, help!"
but the woman acts as if the crash never happened and doesn't look back. Calling out April's name, he crawls out of the wreck. However, what he finds leaves him shattered. April has been thrown through the windshield since she didn't have her seatbelt on and lies motionless on the ground. The next day, Beckett wakes in a hospital with a plaster on his arm. When he tries to stand, a nurse rushes in and puts him back to bed. He asks for April, but the nurse speaks only in her native language before leaving. Beckett refuses to stay put. He slips to the door and sees her speaking with a man. When she notices him, she quickly leads him back to bed, but Beckett keeps asking,
"My girlfriend, April.
With the few English words she can manage, the nurse breaks the news.
"I'm very sorry."
Beckett is devastated, numb, and in disbelief, but she gently pulls him down to rest. The man places Beckett's passport on the bedside table before leaving. Soon after, Beckett goes to the police station, speaking with an officer through a translator. The police are arranging to move April's body to Ioannina, but Beckett must sign a form approving it. He insists on seeing April, but he is told he can see her when they get her ready for Ioannina, because the coroner has gone home and he has the key. They hand him her phone in an evidence bag, and the translator asks,
"Is there anyone you need to call?"
Beckett wants to call her parents and is directed to use the phone. He calls Bob, April's father, and explains the accident. Bob is instantly alarmed, asking several questions. He wonders where to come, but Beckett has no idea which village he's in. Bob believes April is still alive and urges Beckett to stay by her side so she can pull through. Beckett can't bring himself to crush his hope, as tears stream down his face. After the call, Officer Xenakis approaches with a handkerchief, offering condolences. He remarks that the accident was unbelievable, recalling how he saw the wreckage when they hauled the car out of the house. They had crashed 4 kilometers from the station, and he is thankful no one was inside, or it could have been worse. Beckett corrects him, saying,
"There were people in the house."
But Xenakis insists that's impossible, as the house has been abandoned for years. However, Beckett knows what he saw. When asked to describe them, he recalls vividly that the boy was a redhead. Back at his hotel room, Beckett rummages through April's luggage, her loss feeling unreal as he buries his face in her clothes. Spotting a container of Ambien, he stares at it sadly before pocketing it. He then walks down the road to the site of the crash. Entering the abandoned house, the memory hits hard when he sees April's dried blood on the ground. Sitting there for a long while, he pulls out the pills, ready to overdose so he can join the love of his life wherever she is. But before he can complete his suicide mission, the woman he saw the previous night from the crash suddenly appears and begins shooting at him. The thoughts of suicide instantly flies off his head as Beckett runs for his life. He manages to escape and hide in the bushes, but a car soon arrives. It's Xenakis. The woman speaks with him in their language. Calling out, he says,
"My friend, come out. It's okay. There's been a misunderstanding."
Choosing to trust him, Beckett slowly rises with his hands up. But this turns out to be a wrong decision because he gets shot on the arm by the woman instantly. Xenakis also begins shooting, but Beckett luckily runs away without getting shot again. His nightmare, however, is far from over. Xenakis and the woman follow in hot pursuit. Beckett reaches the edge of a cliff, leaving him confused on where to turn to with his assailants close by. After looking at the rocks for some seconds, he decides to risk it all and jumps, landing painfully on a rocky path below. He picks himself up and keeps moving. That evening, still on the run, he comes across an abandoned truck. Guess the village has a thing with abandoned properties. He takes shelter inside, finally resting. The next morning, Beckett is found by a group of hunters. He immediately raises his hand to surrender, but when he realizes they are harmless, he asks for help. One of the men takes him to his house. Beckett just wants a phone to make a call, but the man insists on tending to his wound first. Thankfully, the bullet that hit him went through the flesh, leaving him with a surface wound, which the man wraps in bandage. Beckett, who's confused about the entire situation, tries explaining things to him, sharing it was a bad officer responsible. However, it's just as if Beckett has summoned him, as someone begins pounding at the door. The man checks the window and says,
"You are not here. I make them go."
He goes downstairs with the intention of hiding Beckett. At alert, Beckett wears back his shirt. When he looks through the window, he is alarmed to find the woman, Xenakis' accomplice. The hunter tries his best to hold back Xenakis, but this earns him a punch on the face, knocking him down. Seeing this from the stairs, Beckett instantly flees. Picking up a shirt, he goes through the only available means of escape, the window. He manages to make his way back to the road, but when he sees the police car coming from a distance, he instantly rushes off the path and hides behind some rocks. The car passes without stopping, and a man notices Beckett from above. Beckett rushes towards him for help, realizing the man is a beekeeper. Trying his best to dodge the bees, he says,
I need your help. I need you to call through to the embassy or the consulate.
The beekeeper's wife gives him her phone, but Beckett has no idea on how to reach the embassy. She makes the call for him and hands it back once it rings. Beckett explains his situation over the phone, hiding behind a truck when a car passes. When he learns it would take about a day for the embassy to come get him at his location, he becomes frustrated. He might not last that long with Xenakis hunting him. He asks if he can come to the embassy instead, and is given a name to ask for before ending the call. He then asks the beekeeper's wife,
What's the fastest way to Athens?
She replies,
By car. It's about 5 hours.
5 hours.
Beckett realizes it's an impossible journey on foot, and he looks at the truck, seeing a car seat placed inside. The couple would love to help, but they can't, and Beckett understands. The beekeeper reveals he can take a train from Kalambaka. However, the distance to the train station is far, at the bottom of the valley. The beekeeper directs him, and Beckett decides to figure out a way to get there. Handing back the phone, he offers his thanks. Before leaving, he urges them not to tell anyone they helped him, and the couple agrees. Making his way through the woods, he spots a group in the distance. After crossing a river, he approaches one of the men. When he confirms he speaks English and is with the tourist bus, he begs with desperation.
Please, I need to get to Kalambaka or any train station that can get me to Athens.
He is allowed in and is taken to the town safely. After dropping him at the train station, Beckett sits on the floor waiting for the train. It finally arrives and he boards, sighing in relief. But his troubles aren't over. Xenakis also boards. When he sits next to Beckett, he tries escaping, but Xenakis pins him down, pressing on his broken arm. He then makes a call. Apparently, the beekeepers told them Beckett called the embassy, after being harmed themselves. Xenakis demands to know who Beckett spoke to and what he said. Beckett lies, admitting,
I said I'd explain everything to them when I got there.
He pleads there must be some mistake, but Xenakis threatens to tase him if he makes a scene. Before he can even finish, Beckett pushes him with force and stands up, trying to yell to everyone about his situation, but Xenakis is just as fast. He bends his hand into an awkward position, speaking to everyone in their native language. He's probably telling them Beckett is a criminal and that he is a police officer. Taking Beckett to another section of the train, he lands 2 hard punches before zip tying his hands. The captain comes but passes to the other side when Xenakis speaks their language. Just as an old woman enters the train when it stops, Beckett uses that moment to pull the emergency stop. He and Xenakis begin struggling, and Xenakis ends up shooting himself in the foot during the tussle. Well, he's gotten what he deserves. Beckett rushes out, hands still tied, running for his life. Later, while making a call, he admits,
I didn't pull the trigger. I was just trying to protect myself.
But the man from the consulate tells him he'll have to turn himself in to the local police. Beckett knows he'll no longer exist in this world the minute he does that, but the man assures him they can provide whatever legal assistance he needs. Beckett gets frustrated because it seems the man doesn't understand his point. Unfortunately, the man reveals that they can only help him after he's turned himself in. Seems like Beckett is truly on his own now. After returning the phone to the owner, Beckett crosses the street, still on alert for danger. When he sees the poster of a young boy, he slows down, confusion etched on his face. An altercation across the street gets his attention as he watches a shop owner scolding a lady who tries to set up the poster. When he sees her leaving with another lady, he yells,
Hello. Hi. Excuse me. Do you speak English?
He runs after them, asking about the posters. Eleni, the one who put it up, tells him it's for the Karas rally in Athens. This just makes Beckett more confused, and he asks about the boy on it. He learns the boy is Deimos, Karas' nephew. Beckett is still lost, and Lena, the second lady, explains.
This boy was kidnapped, and he's the nephew of a famous politician, all right?
The ladies are activists, and Beckett admits he's seen Deimos. He explains everything to them, and it turns out Deimos is the little boy he saw with the blonde woman when the accident happened. He asks for a ride to Athens so he can get to the U.S. Embassy. Eleni and Lena consider what he's saying, but Beckett suddenly hides beside their car when he notices the blonde woman across the way. Lena looks across and quietly asks him if the woman after him is blonde. When he confirms, she says,
Get in the trunk of the car.
Beckett does just this, and when the woman and another man come to ask them about Beckett, they direct them elsewhere. After driving for some miles, Beckett is eventually let out into the back seat, and Lena helps take off the zip tie. When Eleni brings up the fact that he shot a police officer, Beckett explains his own side of the story. Deciding to believe him, Lena asks if they are in danger, but Beckett hesitates to answer. He finally admits that they know where he's trying to go, so they'll be waiting. In other words, they all have to be very careful. Afterward, Lena tells him the news on the radio is discussing the kidnapping and possible political motivations. Eleni is almost positive that the people pursuing Beckett are the culprits, and Beckett asks who they really are. Lena reveals,
There's a group called Sunrise. They're far-right, ultra-nationalist Greeks.
Eleni shares that Karas is building a coalition to reverse the austerity measures imposed in Greece by the European Union. That's the reason they're both going to Athens, because there's a rally for Karas for the upcoming elections. When Beckett learns the rally is taking place in Syntagma Square, he instantly begins hyperventilating. This leaves Eleni and Lena worried, and Lena decides to move to the back seat to help. She successfully calms him down. When she asks about what happened to April, Beckett admits,
We weren't supposed to be on that road.
Turns out they were staying at Syntagma Square and left because of the protest, which led to the unfortunate accident. If only Beckett could turn back the hands of time. Later, when Beckett wakes up from his nap, Lena hands over a chocolate bar. However, Eleni realizes that there's a roadblock ahead, and police are checking cars. Thinking quickly and acting fast, Beckett decides to leave the car, thanking them both for their help. Without getting caught, he manages to jump down a short bridge and escape. After walking for several miles, he finally sees a subway station and rushes in. He asks for the U.S. Embassy and is told it's in Omonia Station. He pays for a 90-minute ticket with the coins he has and waits. When the subway comes, he enters and stands just by the door, still on high alert for danger. They finally arrive at Omonia Station, and Beckett gets down. He looks around carefully, still checking for danger, before he begins walking. However, trouble is waiting for him at the stairs. A man suddenly attacks with a knife. Though Beckett dodges, his hand suffers the attack. They begin struggling as Beckett fights for his life, and he finally manages to dislodge the man with his foot. When he shouts,
Help! Help me! He's got a knife!
The man has no choice but to run. He crosses over and the people rush to help him up. Tired from the fight and blood loss, he tries telling them he needs to get to the U.S. Embassy. Afterward, he is helped to the embassy by two men and is allowed in. A doctor attends to his wounds, and Steve Magesy, the person he spoke with on the phone, approaches him. Later, after he is cleaned up, Tynan, an employee, introduces himself to Beckett. He reveals they've located April, and apparently the office in Ioannina refused the body. When they found out she was a U.S. citizen, the embassy was contacted. She's now in the embassy, her parents have been contacted, and the arrangements are underway. Beckett asks to see her, and Tynan takes him. When Beckett sees her still body, the pain comes back, afresh. Afterward, he heads to the restroom and breaks down completely. Back in his office, Tynan asks about everything that happened, and Beckett tells him the full story, admitting the accident was his fault. Tynan asks how he got to Athens, and he reveals he got a ride from two activists headed to the Karas rally. He also shares what they said about the Sunrise Group. When Tynan asks for their names, he tells him without hesitation. Tynan wonders where he can find them, saying,
Well, if I wanted to find them, could I?
Remembering the conversation in the car, Beckett shares their plans to meet at a shop near the Praying Hands. Tynan writes all this down and tells Beckett it's not Sunrise after him. The activists think that because it suits their political narrative, but Tynan feels they don't have the whole picture. He tells Beckett he'll take him to a trustworthy cop and Beckett will fill her in on everything. The embassy can't override whatever alerts the Greek police have out on him since he isn't a diplomat, but this cop can. Still, Beckett is wary and doesn't want any other interaction with cops. Well, he can't even be blamed given his experience. Tynan promises, "I'm going to be with you the whole way." While driving, they come across some protesters on the road. Afterward, the news on the radio brings updates on the kidnapping case. Apparently, credit has been claimed for the abduction, and it's an organization known as the Communist Brigade. This has cast a bad light on Karras, since he had earlier declared the group's separation from his coalition to be a peaceful and strategic one, painting a false picture of unity among the diverse elements of his party. Tynan continues driving him away, passing a shortcut. Before Beckett can realize what's happening, Tynan suddenly pulls out a taser, and Beckett stops it from reaching him. After some tense seconds of struggle, he manages to get a hold of the taser and uses it on Tynan. The electric shock makes him crash the car into a trailer in front. Thankfully, Beckett doesn't get injured and only comes down, winded from the crash. He then escapes, running far away from Tynan. After using an internet cafe, Beckett is able to locate the building with the praying hands. However, Tynan is already across with some policemen. Beckett finds the shop where the activists are gathered, and Lena is surprised to see him. When he explains things, insisting they're in danger, Eleni and Lena are shocked that the embassy is part of everything. Beckett warns, "They know you're here. They probably know I'm coming to warn you. We have to get out of here. We all gotta go." Before he can even finish, Tynan and the men arrive. Lena directs him to use the back door while she and the others talk to the men. She's sure they won't try anything since they have the press with them. Tynan and the police gain access, and Tynan instantly begins looking for Beckett. When he comes to a corner, Beckett hits him before escaping through the balcony. Tynan begins pursuing him while Beckett continues running for his life. He runs into the protesters and uses their mass numbers to his advantage, hiding from Tynan. Karras arrives at the podium for his speech, and the people excitedly chant his name. Still moving through the crowd, Beckett notices the camera and looks at a hotel nearby. Meanwhile, the blonde woman and the thug from the subway station are also present. Beckett enters a nearby building, still on the move, but he gets really scared when gunshots suddenly ring out. The protesters begin scrambling, and Beckett continues running inside the building. Tynan follows him to the basement, and Beckett realizes he's been cornered. Tynan aims his gun at him, saying,
Hold it right there.
However, a call comes in. Just as Beckett realizes Tynan has been given the instruction to end him, he picks up a metal rod and hits Tynan, knocking the gun out of his grasp. He continues hitting before pressing the rod to Tynan's neck. Tynan yells at him to stop, revealing Karras has been murdered. Apparently, he was just shot during his speech. Beckett demands everything Tynan knows, adding pressure to the rod. With his face now red, Tynan admits,
Karras' family's got a ton of shipping money. He wanted more, got involved with crooks, and he owes them.
Beckett is surprised by this information. Deimos' kidnapping was never anything political to begin with. He releases the rod on Tynan, getting angry when he realizes Tynan lied about the communist group. Tynan defends himself, saying Beckett was going to uncover the real crooks and mess with their plan. Basically, they needed someone else to take the blame, but everything is good now since Karras' coalition can't survive. Beckett was just the wrong man in the wrong place, and Tynan says,
"If you keep this part between us, you got nothing to worry about from me."
Beckett asks about Deimos, but Tynan couldn't care less about whatever happens to him. As a final act of vengeance, Beckett hits Tynan with the rod, knocking him unconscious. He then picks up the gun, unscrews the silencer, and tucks it in his waistband before leaving. Outside, he meets pure chaos as angry protesters destroy property in the wake of the shooting. He weaves his way through the chaos, pushing forward until he discovers the thug from the subway station, lying lifeless on the ground. Safe to say he's met his own karma. Gunshots continue ringing out, while people run for safety. Beckett notices Lena and Eleni at a distance, but he also sees the blonde woman. Lena waves at him, but Beckett decides to follow the blonde woman. Curious, Lena also follows Beckett. His chase leads him all the way to the top of a building, and he sees the woman entering a car. Acting quickly, Beckett pulls out the gun and smashes the window. He discovers Xenakis in the passenger seat. Holding the woman down, he aims at Xenakis as Xenakis tries to bring out his own gun. Though his first shot hits the dashboard, the second shot pierces Xenakis' finger, and he loses his grip on his gun. First his foot, now his fingers. Xenakis screams out in pain, while Beckett tries dragging the woman out by the head. However, she bites him, but the pain doesn't stop him from pulling her out. Before she is dragged out completely, she manages to get a gun from the sun visor. When they both land on the ground, she tries shooting, but Beckett is faster. He shoots her in the knee, making her cry out in pain. He tries shooting again, but the clips get exhausted and the gun is thrown out of his hands. Meanwhile, Demos screams for help inside the trunk of the car. In their struggle, the woman successfully shoots Beckett in the abdomen, but he manages to fling the gun from her grip. Xenakis takes over the wheel and begins driving off, while Beckett overpowers and smashes the woman's head on the ground, knocking her out. Lena comes running, asking what happened, but Beckett just tells her to wait and begins chasing Xenakis. Knowing he won't be able to catch him on foot, he stands on the ledge of the building. Immediately he hears the car coming, he takes the risk and jumps off, landing on top of the car. Xenakis tries getting him off, but he crashes into another car. Though in serious pain of his own, Beckett still gives Xenakis heavy punches when he crawls out of the car. A man tries holding Beckett back, but Lena rushes forward, assuring the man she knows him. With bated breath, he tells her to check the trunk, but the loud cries of Demos already attract several people. The trunk is opened, and Demos is brought out, shaken but alive. Lena holds Beckett in comfort, and when he looks at his palm, noticing the heart drawing April made, he begins sobbing bitterly. Looking at Lena, he just repeats,
I should have died.
If you've made it to the end, hit the like button, comment, and share. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next recap.